The transport ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of Crimson Rock. Through the small porthole, Alex Carter watched red dust swirl across a barren landscape dotted with massive stone structures. Each building looked like a fortress built to contain rather than welcome. "First time seeing a prison planet?" asked the woman sitting across from him. Dr. Rachel Stone had been captured during the same raid on the research station where Alex worked as a maintenance engineer. Her face bore fresh bruises, but her eyes remained sharp and defiant. Alex nodded, unable to trust his voice. 3 weeks ago, he had been fixing air recyclers and checking power grids. Now he wore shackles that burned his wrists whenever he moved too quickly. The Dominion soldiers had swept through their colony like a plague, taking anyone young and healthy enough to work or fight. The ship landed with a bone-jarring thud. Heavy footsteps approached their holding area as the cargo bay doors groaned open. Sunlight streamed in, harsh and unforgiving. The heat hit them like a physical blow. "Move, meat." The guard's voice came through a translator device that made every word sound like grinding metal. He stood 7 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that seemed to absorb light. His yellow eyes showed no more emotion than a snake watching prey. Alex helped Rachel to her feet. Her leg had been injured during capture, and she still limped. The guard noticed and laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Weak ones go to the kitchens. Strong ones fight for our entertainment." "Which are you, little mammals?" Neither Alex nor Rachel answered. They had learned that silence brought fewer beatings than defiance. The guard shoved them forward with the butt of his energy weapon, and they stumbled into the blazing sunlight. Crimson Rock stretched before them like a vision of hell. The main structure rose from the planet's surface like a twisted mountain, carved from black stone and metal. Smaller buildings surrounded it, connected by bridges that cast long shadows across exercise yards filled with creatures from dozens of different worlds. "Welcome to your new home," the guard said. "You will work, you will fight, and you will die here. The only question is how long you take to break." They were herded through a series of checkpoints, each one more intimidating than the last. Alex saw beings he had only read about in xenobiology textbooks. Blue-skinned humanoids with 4 arms worked alongside insectoid creatures that clicked and chittered as they moved. All wore the same gray uniforms. All had the same defeated look in their eyes. "Processing time," announced another guard, this one even larger than the first. "Strip and submit to scanning." The medical examination was thorough and humiliating. Machines probed and measured while Dominion technicians made notes on handheld devices. Alex noticed they spent extra time examining his hands and muscle density. Rachel received similar attention, though they seemed more interested in her neural activity readings. "This one has technical knowledge," said a technician, pointing at Alex. "Strength rating is higher than expected for his species. And this female shows advanced cognitive patterns," added another, studying Rachel's scans. "Intelligence could be useful in the research labs." The chief medical officer, a Dominion female with silver scales and cold blue eyes, reviewed their files. "Put the male in general population. Combat evaluation in 1 week. The female goes to the science section. Dr. Vega needs new test subjects for her cognitive enhancement experiments." Alex felt his blood turn to ice. "Wait, we stay together. She's injured and needs—" The guard's weapon struck him across the face before he could finish. Pain exploded through his skull as he hit the floor. Rachel cried out and tried to reach him, but 2 guards held her back. "You do not speak unless spoken to," the chief officer said calmly. "You have no rights here. You own nothing, not even your lives. The sooner you accept this, the easier your time will be." They dragged Alex away as Rachel called his name. He caught one last glimpse of her frightened face before the security doors sealed shut between them. The guards hauled him through corridors lined with cells, past training areas where prisoners fought under the watchful eyes of Dominion overseers. His new cell was a concrete box barely large enough for a sleeping mat and waste facility. The door was solid metal with only a small slot for food delivery. Alex sat on the thin mattress and tried to process what had happened. 3 weeks ago, he had been nobody special. Just another maintenance worker keeping life support systems running on a frontier colony. Now he was property of an empire that viewed his entire species as livestock. Worse, they had separated him from the only familiar face in this nightmare. But Alex Carter had survived worse than this. Growing up in the industrial sectors of Mars, he had learned to fix anything with improvised tools and stubborn determination. Military service had taught him that every system had weaknesses if you knew how to find them. Most importantly, his father had taught him that a man protects what matters to him, no matter the cost. Rachel mattered. She had helped him through the darkest days after his capture, sharing rations when he was too sick to eat and keeping his spirits up when despair threatened to consume him. She was brilliant, kind, and stronger than she looked. If the Dominion thought they could use her as a lab rat, they were about to learn how wrong they could be. A guard brought a bowl of gray slop that might have been food. Alex ate it without tasting, his mind already working on the problem before him. Every prison had routines. Every routine had gaps. Every gap was an opportunity for someone patient and clever enough to exploit it. The Dominion had made one critical mistake. They assumed humans were just another conquered species, no different from the dozens of others that filled their labor camps and fighting pits. They thought superior technology and overwhelming force were enough to break human spirit. They were about to discover that humans were not like other species. When pushed to the breaking point, humans did not simply break. They adapted. They improvised. They found ways to turn weakness into strength and fear into fury. Alex finished his meal and lay back on the hard mattress. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to learn about this place. He would watch, listen, and plan. And when the time came, he would show these scaled tyrants exactly what humans were capable of when someone threatened what they loved. The arena floor was stained with blood from 100 different species. Alex stood in the prep area, watching through reinforced glass as the crowd of Dominion citizens cheered for violence. Their scales rippled with excitement colors that shifted from deep green to bright orange as each blow landed. Magnificent, is he not? Commander Voss gestured toward the massive figure dominating the center ring. Brutus has not lost a single combat in 4 years. 63 kills, all clean and efficient. Alex studied the champion with professional interest. Brutus stood 9 feet tall, his black scales gleaming under the arena lights. Muscle bulged beneath natural armor that could probably stop small arms fire. His forearms moved with surprising grace as he dismantled his current opponent. A wolf-like creature that had probably been someone's nightmare before ending up here. Your people interest me, human, Voss continued. Initial reports suggested you were weak, barely above the level of livestock. Yet yesterday you disabled 3 guards during a disagreement over meal portions. Alex kept his expression neutral. The guards had been beating an elderly prisoner who could barely stand. Military training and basic human decency had taken over before Alex could think about consequences. He had expected punishment, not this conversation with the prison's second-in-command. I was protecting someone weaker than myself, Alex said simply. Voss laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Protecting? How delightfully primitive. In civilized species, the weak serve the strong. It is natural law. Maybe that's why your empire needs to conquer others to feel strong. The backhand sent Alex stumbling, but he kept his feet. Voss's claws had opened 3 parallel cuts across his cheek, but the pain felt distant. He had been hurt worse during training exercises. Careful, little mammal. Your defiance is amusing now, but my patience has limits. Voss wiped Alex's blood from his claws with obvious satisfaction. Still, you show promise. That is why you will have the honor of dying in tomorrow's games. The arena erupted as Brutus finished his opponent with a single devastating blow. The champion raised all 4 arms to accept the crowd's worship, his roar echoing off the curved walls. Alex noted how he favored his left side slightly, probably an old injury that never healed quite right. You will face 3 preliminary opponents, Voss explained as they watched slaves drag away the corpse. If you survive, you earn the right to challenge our champion. Of course, no one has survived that honor in over a year. What happens if I refuse to fight? Voss smiled, showing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Then Dr. Stone becomes tomorrow's entertainment instead. I'm told humans form emotional attachments to potential mates. How charming. Ice water replaced the blood in Alex's veins.
She's not my mate.
She's a scientist. She's valuable for research, perhaps. But Dr. Vega grows bored with her cognitive tests. She asks for more interesting subjects to study pain responses and breaking points. Your Rachel would provide weeks of educational opportunities. Alex forced himself to breathe normally to show no reaction. Inside, rage built like pressure in a damaged reactor core. These creatures thought they could threaten Rachel to control him. They were about to learn the difference between control and motivation. I'll fight, he said quietly. Excellent. The crowd will love seeing a human torn apart. They grow tired of the usual species. Voss checked his wrist communicator. Training begins at dawn. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly. That night, Alex lay on his cell floor doing exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, and stretches that kept his muscles loose and ready. Other prisoners called out advice through the walls, sharing hard-won knowledge about arena survival. The old insectoid in the next cell had fought in over 20 matches before losing his left arm to a Dominion champion. Speed is life, the alien clicked in broken standard language. Big ones always think strength enough. You show them wrong, yes? I'll try, Alex replied. Good. Brutus killed my nestmate 2 seasons ago. If you hurt him, I die happy, bug. Alex smiled grimly in the darkness. It seemed the champion had made enemies throughout the prison population. That could be useful information if he lived long enough to use it. Sleep came in fragments broken by dreams of Rachel strapped to an examination table while Dominion scientists took notes on her screams. Each nightmare made his resolve stronger. He had failed to protect his squad during the war against the outer colonies. He had failed to save his colony from Dominion raiders. But he would not fail Rachel. Dawn brought guards with energy prods and magnetic restraints. They escorted him through corridors filled with other prisoners being moved to work details or punishment assignments. Some called out encouragement in a dozen different languages. Others simply watched with the hollow eyes of those who had given up hope long ago. The armory was a joke. Dull knives, cracked clubs, and armor that looked like it had been collected from garbage dumps across the galaxy. Alex selected a metal rod about 3 feet long and tested its balance. Not ideal, but it would have to do. Your first opponent, announced the arena master, a thin Dominion female with surgical scars covering half her face.
Razor, champion of the hive worlds before their conquest 3 years ago. The creature that entered the prep cage was built like a tank with claws.
Its carapace was scarred from countless battles and acid dripped from specialized glands in its jaw. It looked at Alex with compound eyes that held no emotion beyond hunger. It has killed 47 opponents, the arena master continued cheerfully. Its acid can dissolve steel in seconds. Any last words? Alex hefted his improvised weapon and thought about Rachel somewhere above them, probably wondering if he was already dead. Yeah, tell Brutus I'm coming for him. The arena master's laugh followed him as guards pushed him toward the tunnel leading to the main floor. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, thousands of Dominion citizens waited to watch him die for their entertainment. They expected to see a weak human broken by superior predators. Instead, they were about to witness what happened when someone threatened a human's family. Alex Carter had spent his whole life fixing things that seemed impossible to repair. Today, he would fix the biggest problem he had ever faced. One way or another, Rachel would be safe. Everything else was just details. The roar of the crowd hit Alex like a physical wave as he stepped into the arena. 15,000 Dominion citizens filled the curved seating, their scales shifting colors with excitement. The sand beneath his feet was coarse and dark, stained with the blood of countless previous fighters. Razor waited in the center of the ring, its massive claws scraping furrows in the ground. The creature's compound eyes tracked Alex's movement with predatory focus. Acid hissed as it dripped from specialized glands, eating small holes in the arena floor. Citizens of the Dominion. The announcer's voice boomed from speakers hidden in the walls. Today we present fresh meat from the recently conquered human colonies. Watch as natural selection demonstrates the superiority of our glorious empire. Alex circled slowly, keeping his improvised weapon ready. He had studied the creature during the walk to the arena, noting how it moved and where its joints were most vulnerable. The carapace was thick, but gaps existed where segments met. Every armor had weak points if you knew how to find them. Razor charged with surprising speed for something so large. Alex dove sideways, feeling claws whistle past his ear. He rolled and came up swinging, his metal rod connecting with the creature's rear leg joint. The impact sent vibrations up his arms, but Razor barely seemed to notice. Acid sprayed where Alex had been standing. The sand hissed and bubbled as it ate through to the stone beneath. The crowd cheered, delighted by the near miss. They wanted to see him dissolved alive, screaming in agony for their entertainment. Alex kept moving, using his smaller size and human agility to stay ahead of the creature's attacks. He struck whenever openings appeared, targeting joints in the softer spaces between armor plates. Each hit was precise and calculated, building damage over time rather than seeking a single killing blow. Clever little mammal, came Commander Voss's voice over the arena speakers. But cleverness only delays the inevitable. By the 5th minute, Razor was limping on its rear leg. By the 10th, green fluid leaked from cracks in its carapace. The creature's movements became more desperate, less controlled. Alex had fought enough battles to recognize when an opponent was beginning to panic. The end came suddenly. Razor overextended during a wild charge and Alex slipped inside its guard. His weapon found the gap between head and thorax, driven deep by desperation and human muscle memory. From 100 training sessions, the creature convulsed once and collapsed, its compound eyes going dark. The arena fell silent. Alex stood over his fallen opponent, breathing hard but victorious. Then the crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and angry hisses. Some appreciated the unexpected show, while others were furious that their entertainment had been ruined by competent fighting. "Fascinating," Voss announced. "It seems our human requires more challenging opponents." "Bring out the twins!" Alex barely had time to recover before two new creatures entered the ring. They moved in perfect synchronization, communicating through rapid chirps and clicks. Each stood 6 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and the build of natural-born killers. Worse, they showed tactical intelligence that Razor had lacked. The fight was harder. Much harder. The twins coordinated their attacks, forcing Alex to defend against multiple angles simultaneously. His improvised weapon became a whirling shield, deflecting strikes that would have opened him from throat to groin. By the time he managed to kill the first twin, his arms were covered in shallow cuts and his uniform hung in shreds. The second twin fought with increased fury after losing its partner. Alex finally brought it down by using the arena wall as a weapon, slamming the creature's head against stone with enough force to crack its skull. He staggered back to the center of the ring, exhausted but alive. The crowd was on its feet now, roaring approval. Even the Dominion citizens who had wanted him dead were impressed by the quality of the show. Alex had given them violence and drama beyond their expectations. Remarkable. Voss's voice carried genuine surprise. Not only does our human survive, but he learns and adapts during combat. Perhaps these mammals deserve more study before extinction. Alex wiped blood from his eyes and looked up at the command box where Dominion officers observed the games. Through the reinforced glass, he could see Voss speaking with other officials. The conversation looked heated, with much pointing in his direction. "However," Voss continued, "we cannot allow this display to give false hope to our other livestock. Therefore, we must demonstrate the consequences of resistance." A new section of seating opened above the arena. Guards in full armor escorted a familiar figure onto a small platform suspended over the fighting pit. Alex's heart stopped as he recognized Rachel, her hands bound behind her back and a metal collar around her throat. "Dr. Stone has been selected for a special demonstration," Voss announced cheerfully. "Our scientists wish to test human pain tolerance and emotional responses under stress. The procedure will begin immediately." Alex screamed and ran toward the platform, but it was far too high to reach. Energy barriers flickered to life around the arena walls, preventing any attempt to climb or escape. He was trapped, forced to watch as Dominion technicians wheeled in equipment that looked like it belonged in a torture chamber. "Please," Alex called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet arena. "She's done nothing wrong. Take me instead." "But you are needed for the final fight," Voss replied. "Brutus grows impatient for fresh blood. Besides, this is far more educational. We will learn much about human psychology from your reactions." The first device activated with a high-pitched whine. Rachel tensed but made no sound as electricity coursed through the metal collar. Alex could see her jaw clench with the effort of staying silent. She was trying to be strong for him, trying not to give their captors the satisfaction of her screams. "Interesting," observed one of the technicians. "Neural activity suggests extreme pain, but vocal response is suppressed. Increased power by 30%. This time Rachel did cry out, a sharp gasp that cut through Alex like a blade. Her body convulsed as the current increased and tears ran down her face. But she met Alex's eyes through the pain and managed a weak smile, as if to say she was still fighting. Something fundamental broke inside Alex Carter in that moment. The careful control he had maintained since capture, the strategic thinking that had kept him alive through 3 fights, the disciplined soldier who followed rules and calculated odds, all of it simply ceased to exist. What remained was older and more primal, a fury that had been building since the first moment the Dominion had dared to threaten someone under his protection, the rage of a species that had climbed from caves to stars by refusing to surrender. When the odds were impossible, the energy barrier around the arena began to flicker as Alex threw himself against it again and again. His hands found purchase on metal support struts that should have been too hot to touch. Pain meant nothing. Fear meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was reaching Rachel before they broke her completely. Above him, the torture continued as Dominion scientists took notes on human suffering. But they were so focused on their test subject that they failed to notice the real experiment taking place below. They were learning what happened when you hurt someone a human loved. They were about to discover that some lessons came with a price higher than anyone could afford to pay. Alex's vision went red as Rachel's scream echoed across the arena. The sound cut through him like broken glass, shattering the last threads of self-control that had kept him rational. Every muscle in his body contracted at once, flooding his system with adrenaline and something deeper, a fury that came from millions of years of human evolution. The energy barriers sparked and overloaded as Alex's hands found the power coupling. His engineering background told him exactly where to apply pressure, and his rage provided strength that should have been impossible. Metal groaned and snapped as he tore through support struts that were designed to hold back creatures much larger than humans. "Impossible," breathed one of the technicians above. "The barrier is rated for Class A containment. Nothing that size should be able to breach it." Alex didn't hear the comment. He was beyond hearing anything except Rachel's labored breathing and the sound of his own heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The rational part of his mind that calculated odds and planned strategies had been replaced by something far older and more dangerous. He pulled himself through the gap he had torn in the energy field, ignoring the electrical burns that seared his palms. Guards rushed toward him with energy weapons raised, but they moved like they were underwater compared to the speed of human desperation. The first guard never had a chance to fire. Alex's improvised weapon, still slick with alien blood from his previous fights, caught the creature across the throat with enough force to crush its windpipe. The second guard managed to raise his rifle before Alex drove an elbow into its solar plexus, lifting the 7-foot reptile completely off the ground. "Stop him," Commander Voss's voice cracked with panic. "All units to the arena floor. Use maximum force." More guards poured into the ring, but Alex was already moving. He grabbed the fallen energy rifle and checked its charge indicator. 3/4 full. Enough for what he needed to do. The weapon felt alien in his hands, but the basic principles were universal. Point, squeeze, destroy. Alex had been using similar weapons since basic training on Mars. He put down 4 more guards with precise shots to center mass, their own armor providing no protection against Dominion military-grade energy bolts. Above him, the torture platform hummed with increased power. Rachel's back arched as another wave of electricity coursed through her body. The Dominion scientists were so fascinated by her suffering that they had forgotten about the chaos erupting below. Alex found a service ladder built into the arena wall and began climbing. His burned hands left bloody prints on each rung, but pain was just information now. It told him he was still alive and still moving toward his objective. Everything else was irrelevant. "Target is climbing toward the observation platform," reported a guard captain into his communication device. "Request immediate backup and heavy weapons authorization." "Denied," came Voss's reply. "We need the human alive for study. Use restraint devices only." The order saved Alex's life. Instead of energy bolts that would have cooked him instantly, the guards fired binding nets and stun weapons. Alex twisted and dodged, using his smaller size and the ladder's structure to avoid most of the shots. One stun beam clipped his shoulder, but adrenaline burned through the paralytic effect before it could take hold. He reached the platform level as reinforcements arrived. These guards wore heavier armor and carried weapons designed for riot control. They spread out in a semicircle, cutting off escape routes and preparing to overwhelm him with superior numbers. "Surrender now, and your mate's suffering will be quick," called their leader, a scarred veteran with captain's insignia. "Continue this foolishness and we will take days to kill her." Alex's response was to dive directly into their formation. Military training had taught him that sometimes the best defense was an attack so vicious that it shattered enemy morale. He rolled between their legs, came up inside their guard, and began systematically dismantling the squad with their own weapons. The energy rifle ran dry after the third guard went down. Alex tossed it aside and picked up a shock baton, testing its weight and balance. Close quarters combat was where human flexibility and reflexes gave the greatest advantage. These creatures were strong and tough, but they fought like they expected their opponents to behave rationally. Rational opponents didn't drive shock batons through eye sockets with enough force to scramble brains. Rational opponents didn't use their own body weight to snap limbs that were supposed to be unbreakable. Rational opponents especially didn't keep fighting with injuries that should have dropped them unconscious. The last guard captain tried to retreat, calling frantically for backup that was still climbing ladders far below. Alex caught him at the platform entrance and introduced his scaled face to the metal doorframe. The impact left dents in both. "Please," the captain wheezed through his broken jaw. "We were only following orders." "So was I," Alex replied, and snapped the creature's neck with a quick twist. The torture platform was just ahead, separated from the guard station by a narrow bridge suspended over the arena floor. Through the transparent walls, Alex could see Rachel strapped to the examination table, while Dominion scientists prepared their next experiment. "Fascinating neural patterns," one was saying to his colleague. "Pain tolerance is far higher than predicted. Let us see what happens if we target specific nerve clusters." Alex stepped onto the bridge and began walking toward them. His reflection in the observation window showed a figure that barely looked human anymore. Blood covered him from head to foot, some of it his own. His uniform was in tatters, held together mainly by determination and rage. His eyes held the flat, predatory focus of an apex predator that had found its prey. The scientists looked up as he approached, their scaled faces showing confusion rather than fear. They were so used to being the dominant species that they couldn't process the idea of a test subject breaking free and coming for them. "How did you escape containment?" asked the lead researcher, as if Alex's presence was merely an interesting anomaly to be studied. "The barriers were specifically calibrated for your species' strength parameters." Alex smiled, and the expression was terrible to see. "You made one mistake. You assumed humans had limits." He put his fist through the observation window, and the sound of breaking crystal was like a song of freedom. The scientists scrambled for weapons and alarm buttons, but they were soft creatures who spent their lives in laboratories. They had never learned to fight something that wanted them dead more than it wanted to live. By the time security forces reached the platform, Alex was kneeling beside Rachel's table. She was unconscious but breathing, her pulse strong despite the trauma. The torture devices lay in sparking ruins around the laboratory, along with the scientists who had operated them. "It's okay," Alex whispered, carefully removing the restraints from her wrists. "I'm here now. Nobody's going to hurt you again." Rachel's eyes fluttered open, unfocused but aware. She tried to speak, but her throat was raw from screaming. Alex helped her sit up slowly, checking for serious injuries while keeping one eye on the platform entrance. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded weakly and managed to stand with his support. Together they moved toward the observation deck that overlooked the main arena. Below them, thousands of Dominion citizens watched in stunned silence as their supposed entertainment had turned into a demonstration of human capabilities. "Citizens of the Dominion," Alex called out, his voice carrying clearly across the arena. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of. You wanted to test our limits and break our spirits. Congratulations. You succeeded in teaching us exactly what we're fighting for." In the command box across the arena, Commander Voss stood with his communication device pressed to his ear. Even at this distance, Alex could see the panic in his posture as he called for more reinforcements. "But there's one more lesson you need to learn," Alex continued. "You hurt my mate. That means someone has to pay the price. And I choose your champion." A new roar echoed through the arena as blast doors opened and Brutus emerged onto the fighting floor. The massive warrior looked up at the platform where Alex stood with Rachel, and his forearms spread wide in a gesture of challenge. The crowd fell silent, waiting to see if the human would actually descend to face their undefeated champion. They had witnessed impossible things in the last few minutes, but surely this was beyond even human capabilities. Alex looked down at Rachel, who was struggling to focus through the after effects of torture. "Stay here," he said gently. "This won't take long." He kissed her forehead and turned toward the ladder that led back to the arena floor. Somewhere in the distance, alarms were wailing as more security forces converged on their position. But none of that mattered now. Brutus was waiting for him, and Alex Carter had a debt to collect. Alex dropped the last 10 feet to the arena floor, landing in a crouch that absorbed the impact. Blood from his various wounds left dark spots on the sand, but he felt no pain. The rage that had carried him through his escape burned away everything except focus and determination. Brutus stood in the center of the ring, all 9 feet of scaled muscle and natural armor, His forearms moved in slow, hypnotic patterns as he stretched and prepared for combat. Scars covered his body like a road map of past victories, each one a testament to his survival skills. "So," the champion rumbled, his voice carrying easily across the arena without amplification. "The little mammal thinks to challenge me after killing some guards and scientists. Amusing." Alex walked slowly around the perimeter, studying his opponent with professional interest. The slight favor of the left side was more pronounced now that he could see Brutus up close. An old injury, probably to the lower ribs, the kind of damage that never healed quite right and flared up under stress. "I have killed 63 opponents in this ring," Brutus continued, turning to keep Alex in sight. "Warriors from 17 different species. Some were larger than me. Some were faster. All are dead." The crowd leaned forward in their seats, sensing that this fight would be different from the usual entertainment. There was something in the human's movements that spoke of deadly purpose rather than desperate struggle. "Your mate screamed beautifully," Brutus added with casual cruelty. "I could hear her from down here. Perhaps when I finish with you, they will let me play with her for a while." Alex stopped walking. When he looked up at the champion, his eyes held the cold calculation of an engineer solving a structural problem. Brutus was just another system that needed to be fixed, and Alex Carter was very good at his job. "You talk too much," Alex said quietly. Brutus laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "And you think too much. Let me correct that problem." The champion charged with surprising speed for something so massive. His forearms spread wide to prevent dodging, while his powerful legs ate up the distance between them. Most opponents would have panicked at the sight of that much concentrated violence coming their way. Alex waited until the last possible second, then dropped flat to the sand and rolled directly between Brutus's legs. The champion's momentum carried him forward while Alex came up behind him, already moving toward the arena wall. "Clever," Brutus admitted, spinning around with impressive agility. "But cleverness will not save you when I catch you." He charged again, this time with his arms positioned to cover low attacks. Alex sprinted toward the wall, building speed until he was moving faster than most creatures could track. At the last moment, he leaped and kicked off the stone surface, using his momentum to propel himself up and over the champion's head. Alex landed behind Brutus and immediately rolled away, as 4 massive fists cratered the sand where he had been. The champion was fast, but physics was faster. Every action had an equal and opposite reaction, and Alex was using that principle to turn Brutus's strength against him. "Stop running and fight!" Brutus roared, frustrated by his inability to land a solid blow. "I am fighting," Alex replied, circling at a safe distance. "You're just too slow to notice." This time when Brutus charged, Alex met him head-on. At the last second, he dove low and swept the champion's front legs. It was like trying to trip a building. But Alex had noticed that Brutus's center of gravity was higher than it should be. All that upper body muscle was impressive, but it made him top-heavy. The champion stumbled but caught himself before falling. However, the momentary loss of balance was enough for Alex to land a solid punch to the old injury on Brutus's left side. The champion's roar of pain echoed off the arena walls. "First blood to the human," the announcer called out, his voice filled with disbelief. Alex danced away as Brutus swung wildly with all 4 arms. The champion was hurt and angry now, which made him more dangerous but also more predictable. Angry fighters made mistakes, and Alex was counting on that. The crowd was on its feet, screaming in a dozen different languages. Half wanted to see the human torn apart for his insolence. The other half was beginning to appreciate the tactical brilliance of his approach. He was making the unbeatable champion look clumsy and slow. "You cannot win," Brutus snarled, favoring his injured side. "I am stronger, tougher, and better armed. Your species is weak." "My species," Alex said as he avoided another charge, "survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that would have broken yours. We got where we are by being too stubborn to quit when things looked impossible." He feinted left, then went right as Brutus tried to anticipate the move. This time Alex's target was the champion's right knee, and his kick landed with surgical precision on the joint. Brutus stumbled again, his legendary balance finally beginning to fail. The end came faster than anyone expected. Brutus, desperate to land a killing blow, threw himself forward in a wild tackle that would have crushed any normal opponent. Alex waited until the champion was committed to the attack, then stepped aside and grabbed one of the massive arms. Physics and leverage did the rest. Alex used Brutus's own momentum to swing him around and slam him into the arena wall with bone-crushing force. The champion hit the stone face first, his own weight driving him into the unyielding surface. Brutus staggered back from the wall, dazed and bleeding. Alex was already moving, his hands finding the loose stone that the impact had knocked free. It was roughly the size of a human head and weighed about 20 pounds. Perfect for what he needed to do. "This is for Rachel," Alex said simply. The stone caught Brutus in the temple with all the force that human rage and physics could provide. The champion's eyes went wide with surprise, then blank as he toppled backward onto the arena floor. His body convulsed once and went still. Silence fell over the arena like a physical weight. 15,000 Dominion citizens stared at the impossible scene before them. Their undefeated champion, the symbol of their species' superiority, lay dead at the feet of a creature they had considered barely above livestock. Alex dropped the bloody stone and looked up at the command box where Commander Voss stood frozen in shock. The human's chest rose and fell with exhaustion, but his eyes still burned with the fury that had carried him through this nightmare. "Anyone else want to hurt my mate?" Alex called out, his voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. The arena erupted into chaos as the implications of what they had witnessed sank in. If humans could do this, what did it say about the Empire's assumptions regarding their other conquests? How many supposedly inferior species were simply waiting for the right moment to strike back? Above him, Alex could see Rachel struggling to reach the ladder that led down to the arena floor. She was hurt and weak, but she was alive. That was all that mattered. Everything else was just details that could be sorted out later. Security forces were finally responding to the emergency, pouring into the arena from multiple entrances. But they moved cautiously now, having seen what this particular human was capable of when properly motivated. Alex walked toward the center of the ring where Brutus lay motionless. The champion's forearms were spread wide in a final gesture of defeat, and his scarred face held an expression of terminal surprise. 64 opponents, Alex said quietly, correcting the champion's earlier boast. "But you were wrong about one thing. I'm not just a warrior from another species. I'm a human protecting his family. That makes me something you never learned to fight." He knelt beside the fallen champion and closed the creature's eyes with surprising gentleness. Brutus had been a killer and a symbol of oppression, but he had also been a warrior doing what he thought was right. Alex could respect that, even as he was glad the bastard was dead. The sound of approaching boots told him that his time was running out. Soon the arena would be filled with guards carrying weapons that even human determination couldn't overcome, but he had accomplished what he came here to do. Rachel was safe. The Dominion had learned that humans were not the helpless creatures they appeared to be, and somewhere in the galaxy, word would spread about what had happened here. Other conquered species would hear about the human who killed the Empire's champion, and wonder what they might accomplish if they found the courage to fight back. Alex Carter stood, slowly, and turned to face the approaching guards. He had no weapons left except his bare hands and the fury that still burned in his chest. It would have to be enough for whatever came next. The first guard to reach Alex moved with the cautious respect normally reserved for unexploded ordnance. His energy rifle was trained on the human's chest, but his scaled hands trembled slightly as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. "Surrender now," the guard called out, his voice cracking with uncertainty. "Drop to your knees and place your hands behind your head." Alex looked around the arena at the dozens of guards surrounding him. Each one carried weapons that could kill him instantly, but none of them seemed eager to get within arm's reach. They had seen what happened to their colleagues who underestimated human capabilities. "I don't think so," Alex replied calmly. "I have somewhere else to be." The sound of his voice carried clearly across the arena, and something unexpected happened. From the prisoner sections high above, a cheer went up. It started with a single voice, then spread like wildfire as hundreds of enslaved beings realized what they had witnessed. The unbeatable champion was dead. The Dominion guards were afraid. For the first time since their capture, the impossible seemed possible. "Silence," Commander Voss's amplified voice boomed across the arena. "Return to your cells immediately or face collective punishment." But the cheering only grew louder. Prisoners from a dozen different species added their voices to the growing roar of defiance. Some called out in languages Alex didn't recognize, but the meaning was universal. Hope had returned to Crimson Rock. In the command box, Voss spoke rapidly into his communication device. I need immediate reinforcement from the orbital platforms. The prisoners are showing signs of organized resistance. Deploy riot suppression protocols immediately. Alex used the distraction to move closer to the wall, where Rachel was slowly climbing down from the observation platform. She was hurt and exhausted, but her eyes were clear and focused. Seeing her moving under her own power gave him strength he didn't know he still possessed. Dr. Stone called one of the guards, swinging his weapon toward her. You will stop where you are and await escort back to your cell. She's not going anywhere with you, Alex said. Positioning himself between Rachel and the guards, the lead guard's finger tightened on his weapon's trigger. You are outnumbered 50-1, human. Your defiance ends here. Before Alex could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the prison complex. Emergency lights bathed the arena in pulsing red as automated systems detected multiple security breaches. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the corridors. What is happening? Voss demanded over the communication system. Sir, we have uprisings in sectors 7 through 12, came the panicked reply. Prisoners have overpowered guards and seized weapons. They're moving toward the armory and the main computer center. Alex smiled grimly as understanding dawned. The other prisoners hadn't just been inspired by his victory over Brutus. They had been waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity, and his actions had provided the signal they needed. You wanted to see what humans were capable of. Alex called out to the command box, but you forgot to ask what we might teach your other prisoners while we were here. The truth was starting to sink in among the Dominion forces. Alex Carter hadn't just killed their champion. He had sparked the beginning of a full-scale rebellion that was spreading through the prison like wildfire. Rachel reached the arena floor and stumbled toward Alex, her injured leg barely supporting her weight. He caught her as she fell, holding her steady while keeping his eyes on the increasingly nervous guards. Can you run? He asked quietly. If I have to, she replied, her voice hoarse but determined. You will not escape, the lead guard announced, trying to regain control of the situation. Even if you somehow leave this arena, the planet is surrounded by orbital defense platforms. No ship leaves without authorization. Then I guess we'll have to get authorization, Alex said. The guard's reply was cut off by another explosion, this one much closer. Part of the arena's upper structure collapsed in a shower of stone and twisted metal. Through the gap, Alex could see armed prisoners fighting their way through corridors that had been designed to contain them. All units fall back to secure positions, Voss ordered over the speakers. Initiate lockdown protocols and prepare for orbital bombardment of rebellious sectors. The guards began withdrawing toward reinforced checkpoints, but they moved reluctantly. None of them wanted to be the one who let the human escape, but none of them wanted to be the next victim of his impossible fury either. Alex helped Rachel toward the arena exit, moving slowly but steadily. Other prisoners were already there, having fought their way down from the upper levels. The insectoid from the cell next to his nodded respectfully as they passed. Good fight, human. Brutus deserved killing for what he did to my nestmate. What he did to all of us, added a blue-skinned humanoid with acid burns covering half her face. The question now is whether we can reach the ships before they bring down the orbital platforms. Alex looked around at the growing group of freed prisoners, representatives from dozens of species, all united by their hatred of Dominion oppression. Each one had skills and knowledge that could be useful in the fight ahead. The main hangar is 3 levels up, he said, but they'll have it heavily defended. Not necessarily, replied a thin creature that looked like a walking stick insect. I worked in communications before my capture. The guards are pulling back to protect the command center in the armory. They don't have enough personnel to secure everything. Rachel squeezed Alex's arm. The research labs have emergency escape pods. Small, but they might be enough to reach the orbital platforms. Or we could take the main transport ships, suggested the blue-skinned woman. Make a real statement about what happens when you underestimate your prisoners. Alex considered their options while explosions continued to echo through the complex. The Dominion forces were retreating, but they would regroup soon. This window of opportunity wouldn't last long. We split up, he decided. Small groups have a better chance of reaching the hangar. Everyone who makes it to a ship waits exactly 10 minutes for stragglers, then leaves immediately. And if the orbital platforms try to stop us? Asked the insectoid. Alex looked down at Brutus's body, still lying where it had fallen in the center of the arena. The sight filled him with grim satisfaction and cold determination. Then they'll learn the same lesson their champion did. You don't threaten a human's family and expect to walk away. The group began moving toward the exit, but Alex paused for one last look around the arena. 15,000 Dominion citizens sat in stunned silence, finally understanding that their empire was built on assumptions that were fatally flawed. This is just the beginning, Alex called out to them. Every species you've conquered is going to hear about today. They're going to realize that the Dominion bleeds just like everyone else, and when they rise up, they'll remember that a human showed them the way. Commander Voss appeared at the edge of his command box, his scaled face twisted with rage and fear. You have doomed your entire species, human. When word of this rebellion reaches the homeworlds, they will send fleets to glass every planet your kind has ever touched. Alex helped Rachel through the arena exit, while freed prisoners streamed past them toward the upper levels. Behind them, the sound of fighting grew closer as the rebellion spread through sectors that had been thought completely secure. Let them come, Alex replied without looking back. Humans have been waiting our entire history for a fight that really mattered. This is what we were born for. They disappeared into the corridors of Crimson Rock as the prison burned around them. Above, ships were already launching from hidden hangars as word of the escape spread. Some would be shot down by orbital defenses, but others would make it to the outer system and beyond. Each escapee carried the same message to their homeworlds. The Dominion could be beaten. Their champions could be killed. Their empire could fall, and it had started with a human engineer who refused to let anyone hurt his mate. The revolution that would reshape the galaxy had begun with a single act of love and fury. Alex Carter had fixed the biggest problem he had ever faced, and in doing so, he had given hope to millions of enslaved beings across the stars. The Dominion would never recover from the lesson they had learned in the arena of Crimson Rock. Sometimes, the smallest person in the room was the most dangerous one there.